I was wrong about Mewtwo, specifically in the movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, which I saw in theaters when I was a kid when it released in America. And I know you're probably wondering, why are you talking about this ancient artifact of a film that came out so long ago? But the reason is because I saw this post on Twitter comparing the English dub version of the movie to the Japanese subtitled version and how different and butchered the localization was for the film. I know you don't need a fully developed frontal lobe to understand Pokemon, and this movie is no different. It's Pokemon and a good guy versus a bad guy. That's how every Pokemon movie is. But in Mewtwo Strikes Back, Mewtwo, in the English version, was this Pokemon grown in a lab to be the strongest Pokemon. He wakes up, he's angry that he's in a lab, he gets mad and kills everyone, and then he challenges all of the trainers to come to his island to fight to see if his clone race that he made can be the superior race, and he wants to take over the world and to have his clones inherit the world and not be enslaved to humans. Of course, at the end of the movie, he has a change of heart after Ash sacrifices himself. I think a lot of people are familiar with Ash getting stoned and then healed by the power of friendship tears. But when I watched it, I always felt like most people, Mewtwo was this extremely strong and dangerous Pokemon that had this inherently evil personality. Just the way he looks, the way it was marketed in America with this destructive trailer showing him blowing up, and then you see his cute counterpart Mew that's the complete opposite of his personality, really. It always just seemed to me like he woke up in a test tube, realized how strong he was, wanted to get revenge, and wanted to make a world where his clones were the superior race. But in the Japanese version, it tells this exact same story, just in a way, 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 way different tone. So here's the Japanese and the English version.
私は誰だここはどこだ誰が埋めと頼んだ誰が作ってくれと願った私は私を生んだ全てを恨むだからこれは攻撃でもなく宣戦布告でもなく私を生み出したお前たちへの逆襲だ
Who am I? What is my true reason for being? I will find my own purpose and purge this planet of all who oppose me, human and Pokemon alike. The world will heed my warning. The reign of Mewtwo will soon begin.
Now, when I read this, I immediately couldn't believe how different it was. And it sent me down this rabbit hole of just how much this movie was actually changed. Now, this being the first Pokemon movie that was released in America, I think they thought it was pretty important for it to land well, so there were a ton of cuts adding and removing scenes in between the movie, the DVD, the VHS releases. Apparently, there's this entire backstory scene I had no idea existed until today. It shows Mewtwo's origin, where he's being cloned to be the strongest Pokemon, but then there's also one of the researchers who's named Fuji who wants to clone his dead daughter, and one of the clones of his dead daughter meets Mewtwo, and they have this back and forth, and she becomes his friend. The clone girl apparently is a failure, though, and disappears, and Mewtwo starts to, like, freak out, and they're like, whoa, whoa, calm down, Mewtwo, and they erase his memory and put him into a sleeping state. So after this point in the story, this is kind of actually where the American version of the first Pokemon movie begins. This is the movie that I remember seeing in theaters. From this point on, you probably already know what happens, but when he wakes up, he barely has any memory of what happened beforehand. He's confused and angry, but doesn't know why because of his missing memories, and just destroys the entire lab, pretty much killing everyone, sending Fuji to see his daughter again. But this was entirely cut from the English movie release. This wasn't in theaters. In theaters, you just see the version where Mewtwo wakes up and he's like, who am I? Why am I created? Am I just an experiment? He just starts blowing shit up. Now, this was released in the DVD version as its own separate origin scene dubbed in English, but it pretty much just goes from painting Mewtwo as this kind of depressed, confused, and reactionary villain to, I want to eradicate all humans for creating me, and I want to make my own evil kingdom. And I know they're both acting on revenge towards their creators, but the tone and the meaning behind it changes so drastically in the Japanese version. The English version takes away Mewtwo being this morally gray character, which I had no idea that he was. Would this be a problem if Mewtwo is actually just evil? I mean, no, not really. But at the end of the movie, when he has a change of heart, it always seemed a little weird to me. I just forgave it because it's Pokemon, so that is just gonna happen no matter what. I mean, usually these movies have two types of villains. One, it's a evil villain through and through that probably has a change of heart at the end, or it's an evil villain that's also kind of just comedic relief. So it makes sense of where they landed for this because it's a movie for kids. But I feel like I have this newfound knowledge of this movie of my childhood that completely just changes it and turns it on its head. I know some people prefer the evil villainous Mewtwo versus the morally gray one, but in my opinion, it kind of makes some of the, like, this is the most famous quote in all of Pokemon movie history. It makes it hit a lot harder.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
And listening to this in Japanese for the first time, it's pretty funny because if this translation is right, Mewtwo is just like, hey, yeah, guys, sorry about all this. We should probably just forget about it. You know, honestly, my bad, guys. This is actually probably one of the rare points where, even though I haven't seen all of the Japanese version, I prefer the American localization of the film, just in this scene in particular, though. Apparently, these were made because it was thought that themes of existentialism and identity were a little too dark and depressing for younger audiences in America, where at the time, a lot of the movies showing were heroes versus villains, and that was pretty much it. So they kind of decided to make him seem like this destructive kind of, you know, one-note villain, which for kids is probably easier to understand, so I get why they did it. Like I said before, I don't hate villains that are inherently evil just because of their traumatic past. I think that's fine. Apparently there are a lot of changes to this movie just entirely. It's just that these in general that I had no idea about just makes me think about this movie so much differently. But now that I'm older, I'm personally a fan of more of the morally gray character that Mewtwo was portrayed as, just because it makes a lot of his reasoning for doing things feel a lot stronger to me. He has interesting meaning behind his actions and doesn't just feel like a random Pokemon dictator that shows up out of nowhere. And I know technically their actions in the movies are the same, but this adds a lot of context that I didn't have before. It just gives the movie an entirely different feel to it. And listen, Mewtwo, I'm sorry, man. I honestly thought you were this crazy, like, dictator Pokemon that was just mad at being in a tube for a long time, but you're more than that, okay, Mewtwo? Listen, I understand. I'm sorry, all right? Thank you to all the members this month. I appreciate you guys very much. And special thank you to the Calamari tier members, DJ Foxbox. I'll see you guys next time. So I'm sure you need another video to watch because you're not done eating yet. So it's right here for you. Watch it. I'm putting it right there in front of your eyeballs, right here for you. There you go.